The Spectator UK magazine's video show did a terrific interview with Conservative best-selling author and commentator Douglas Murray this week, exploring how the new UK Labor government that they're almost certainly going to have soon will deal with the emerging leaders on the right in Europe, like Italy's Giorgia Meloni, Holland's Geert Wilders and France's Marine Le Pen. All of those people were once described as right-wing extremists, now surprisingly in major leadership roles in their countries. Yet the Brits, like our government here in Australia, doesn't even like letting people who don't subscribe to modern woke ideology have a platform to speak. They'd rather we all just shut up and fade away so they can get on with wrecking the place. Douglas Murray recounted a recent trip to a Conservative conference in Europe that he took with a very conservative UK Tory MP called Daniel Kaczynski. Even though Kaczynski is a member of the Conservative Party in the UK, there were calls from people, even within his own party, for him to have the whip withdrawn. And that's posh UK speak for be kicked out of the party, more or less. Just for going to a Conservative conference in Europe. Sounds a lot like the Australian Liberal Party and its left-wing infiltration. Here's UK Spectator TV.
Yes, I was at a conference with Daniel Kaczynski in Rome in 2020. And there were representatives of all the main Conservative governments across Europe. Viktor Orban was there. And Giorgia Meloni was one of the speakers. And Daniel Kaczynski, Matteo Salvini was meant to be there, then didn't actually turn up in the end, but he was a much more prominent figure at the time, having been Interior Minister in Italy. Daniel Kaczynski almost had the Conservative whip withdrawn. Certainly people like Margaret Hodge of the Labour Party called for him to have the whip withdrawn. Members of his own party called for it. Because Daniel Kaczynski had appeared at a conference with these right-wingers from the continent. And I remember saying the same thing then. What's going to happen when Giorgia Meloni is Prime Minister? Well, we actually got the answer because 3 years after the conference, Giorgia Meloni is just around the corner from here on Downing Street, kissing Rishi Sunak, and both of them talking about how wonderful the relationship is between Italy and the UK. Again, you could see this coming. But on that occasion, it was even faster, because that was just 3 years between you're not allowed in a room with this woman to Prime Minister Meloni, how wonderful to see you.
Yes, what a shift they make once the people have spoken and they realise how out of step they actually are. It's same with the self-described right-wing liberal Geert Wilders from Holland. The results of the 2023 Dutch general election were described as one of the biggest political upsets in Dutch politics since World War II, with Wilders' party becoming the largest in the Dutch House of Representatives. Not big enough to govern on his own right or for Wilders to become Prime Minister, though. On the 13th of March, Wilders had to announce that he was not going to pursue his bid to become Prime Minister because potential coalition partners wouldn't support him. Although he did say that that was unfair and constitutionally wrong. Just last month, he announced he'd reached a provisional agreement with 3 other Dutch party leaders to form a coalition government, but he won't be the PM. Analysts say that Wilders generally considers himself to be a right-wing liberal. He says, quote, "We will never join up with the fascists and Mussolinis of Italy. I'm very afraid of being linked with the wrong rightist fascist groups." He says former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was his greatest political role model. Wilders is best known, though, for his anti-Islam views, and that's how he probably got his far-right label from the left. Not that it takes much to get one of those these days. Spectator TV and Douglas Murray recounted the time back in 2009 when Wilders was actually denied entry into the UK.
Yes, I remember the affair very well. Geert Wilders, who was then already a member of the Parliament in the Netherlands, was meant to come to the UK, had been invited to give a speech at the House of Lords by a couple of peers, and he was turned away at the border. And this was quite an insult. I mean, I don't think that people quite realised at the time. The Dutch ambassador turned up at the airport, and it's a serious matter they regard as an insult. But he was turned away because the then Labour Home Secretary, Jackie Smith, had decided that he should not be allowed to enter the country because his views on Islam could be not conducive to the public good. And I said at the time, that's why I mentioned it in the piece, I said at the time to Jackie Smith and to the people who supported her move, what'll you do when Wilders is prime minister. Now, Wilders is not quite prime minister, but he won, overwhelmingly won the number of seats at the Dutch elections last November. He's putting together a government. The main centre-right party, the VVD, is going in with him. And I just think it throws up, as I say in my piece, a very interesting question, which is, in Britain, we have been very, very much misjudging what has been going on the continent for a long time now. And one of the oddities is that the people who present themselves as most Europhile are the ones who've actually ignored the developments the most.
Yeah, it's those who say that they want Britain back in the EU, who hypocritically also want to ignore this political shift away from the new left that's going on in Europe, all around the world, as more and more of the normal people rise up and reject the woke elites. That's Douglas Murray there, speaking to UK Spectator TV's John Connolly. It's really time for us to put woke ideology to bed in Australia permanently, and for Australia's main centre-right parties, the Liberals and Nationals, to understand that the mainstream has shifted. Take the cue from the EU. Radical gender ideology, climate ideology, mass immigration, and critical race theory are simply no longer, and maybe never were, mainstream. Did you like that content? The Other Side is actually an hour-long weekly show right here on YouTube. It's your weekly summary of the best news and commentary to get you up to speed every weekend. The show this clip came from is actually right here. And to make sure you never miss any of our content, please hit the subscribe button below or click here and hit the little bell too. It's free. And if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, click that little $ sign and make a donation so that we can keep delivering. Thank you.